Hello and welcome back to another Microsoft Flight Simulator video. In this video I'm going to do my first impressions of Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. Here we are in San Antonio in the brand new for Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, the Twin Otter. Now there's a lot of hot topics when it comes to the Otter. The Otter was available in 2020 from Aerosoft, but apparently Asobo went ahead and bought the plane from them, and now we have it here in 2024, and it looks really good. It's actually one of my first flights with it, but overall it feels really good. So what do I think of Flight Sim 2024? Well, if you're one of the few lucky people, you got in the first day, which was on the 19th. It launched at 10 a.m. Central Time, and the biggest issue was people getting past the authorization screen. So it would sit there at a percentage, and it would continue to try to get authorization from the servers to validate your account, and a lot of people couldn't get past that. Thankfully, I was one of the few people that did get past that screen and got into the sim. I was able to do a handful of flights, and the first hour of flights went really good. The server was holding up in terms of the cloud-based stuff, so everything you're seeing in 2024 is streamed via the cloud. The plane itself is via the cloud. Obviously, the ground textures are all through the cloud, as always, and all was fine. The problem was that not all the planes that I should have had with the Premium Deluxe version were accessible, as many people had issues with that. So, I restarted the sim. Big mistake, because it took about an hour and a half to 2 hours to get back into the sim. Maybe not that long, maybe about an hour to get back into the sim. Once you got back into the sim, you were pretty much told, do not exit it. Because if you exit it, you're going to be back in the queue, which Microsoft then had to put in because of all the issues authenticating Flight Sim 2024. So, I stayed in the sim from 1 p.m. until about 8 p.m. that night. So about 7 hours, and I got a handful of good flights in. So, some good impressions, right, initially, in terms of my experience within the sim. We're not going to talk about the server issues because it's a launch day title. Server issues do happen, right? And Flight Sim is a niche community, so it's hard for Microsoft and Asobo to really figure out what is the best amount of server capacity you need. And you don't want to overdo it because, you know what, that kind of stuff costs a lot of money. So I feel like they did their best, and it just exceeded what they expected, and that's a good thing for us flight simmers for sure. More people involved with the sim, more people have access to the sim, more people excited about the sim means maybe more support from Microsoft into the sim. So it's a blessing in disguise, I feel, long term, that there have been server issues. Now, people are having issues that once they got up to 90% or in the 90s, that it would just stick there forever. They were asked to restart the system, restart the sim itself, and then let it go through the process again of loading. And if you got into that part, well, things were fine. Here I am, day 2, recording this video, which is on the 20th, currently at about 2 p.m. Central Time, and this morning has been a bit shoddy. I got in for about an hour, had about an hour worth of good stream going on, and then I couldn't load certain planes. I couldn't load into certain areas, and there's just a point where I just could not get into, I got into the sim, but I couldn't get into an airport to start flying. So that's day 2. But again, I'm not going to talk about that as if it's the biggest issue going forward with Flight Sim 24, because I feel with 2024, what we're seeing from the sim is really cool. The graphics are incredible. The ray tracing is exceptional. The performance is outstanding as well. My FPS is not showing there, but you can see up in the top right corner there, 96 So in the 90s with the GPU percentage, that hardly happened with 2020. So that's great. It's taken advantage of my 4080 system. That's fantastic. It's also taking advantage of the multi-core from my 14700K processor. That's also another huge thing. The planes feel so much more smoother. And I don't want to use the word realistic because I am not a pilot, so I don't know if they actually feel more realistic. But in 2020, one of the biggest issues have always been landing. The transition from being airborne to landing on the ground sometimes had some issues, right? You go from different effects, and different developers added in different things to combat that. So every plane felt a little bit different how it was handled. For example, some people don't like the way that SWS did it with the PC-12 and the Kodiak. There's such an aggressive transition from being airborne to being on the ground, right? And other developers, like what they did with the Comanche over at A2A, I felt they did a really good job with it. Not many people complained about that transition. This sim, though, I have not had a single issue with that transition. And now, of course, all the planes I have flown have been all for 2024, but none of those issues. So the handling of the planes feels so much better. Personally, the performance is substantially better, in my opinion, or the overall smoothness is what I'm meaning with that. There are some things you have to figure out with the controls. Some of the controls are a little questionable why they changed them. There are a lot of multi-keys now versus single keys. Again, I don't know exactly why. I do know they added a bunch of new features in terms of some aircrafts can drop water, etc. You got the skydiving, you got the agricultural stuff. So, obviously they need keys to make that happen. I don't know how they're doing it with the Xbox, because they're obviously you have limited keys with that. But I understand why they did it. It's just that they really mapped a lot. Thankfully, you can switch back to the 2020 keyboard if you really want to, and then add in the stuff you're going to use. So if you're not going to do the parachuting thing, you don't need anything bound for that, right? If you're going to do the firefighting, dropping the water, if you're not going to, you don't need that one bound. So buying the keys you need. The walk around feature is really cool. It's a feature that I didn't think I was really going to care about, but being able to land at a Bush airport or just on the side of the road and take a walk is really cool. The interior, the lighting, this cool look at the cockpit here. The glass is really cool to see that reflection happen. Yeah, sure, it might be overkill in some areas, but it's really cool. So here we are on the landing now of this Twin Otter, which is, again, fantastic. It's done by Hans, the same guy who did the ATR. And we're coming in pretty nicely here. We're coming in a little hot. I'm going to reduce that speed just a little bit here. Don't grade me too much on this landing because, this is just for fun. I also don't have my flaps set properly. All right, looking pretty good. We're going to come in probably a little bit short, but that's fine. We're going to be on the runway. Looking good. Pull back a little bit. Look at that. Like, the transition from being in the air to being on the ground, it doesn't feel so aggressive anymore. A hard landing doesn't feel like you just broke the plane. Now, of course, we do want to have something in there to help you understand your landing wasn't great, but we don't need to be so bad where it seems like the plane's going to fall apart into pieces when you do like a minus 400 or minus even 300 sometimes felt pretty rough depending on the aircraft you're in. But I think it's really cool. Let's take a quick walk here on the outside. So here we are. Here's the Twin Otter in all of its glory. Again, graphics are extremely well done. Grass throughout the entire world. Rocks all over the place. You have little weeds in the grass as well. So visually, the sim is outstanding. Now, we do know from day one that wasn't going to be major support for third-party stuff. Even though Microsoft and Asobo said, yeah, it's all going to work just fine. You know, if you thought that was going to be the case, you're crazy. I was hopeful, but I knew realistically it wasn't. Even look at this. This looks like there's a elevation change from the actual taxiway to the rocks and grass here. That is really cool. There probably isn't. It's probably just an effect. Yeah, it looks like it's just an effect, but that effect is really, really cool. It gives it depth, right? Something that you cannot find in just a random... This is not a handcrafted airport either. This is San Antonio. This is not a handcrafted airport. This is just default stuff here. And it looks really, really good. So, first impressions, yes, sure, there's server issues. That's bound to happen. Any new big game that comes out has those server issues. But the performance, the sounds, the aircrafts, everything about 2024 that you expected, discounting third-party stuff, is there, right? The core sim is pretty impressive, and it's going to be a heck of a foundation going forward. Once the third-party developers get their planes figured out, get them over to 2024, I think people will be really, really happy. This first week, of course, will be a little patchy with server issues, but going forward, I think it's going to be an amazing sim, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see 2024 outdo 2020 over the course of the next couple weeks here. Day one, not so much, but once we get the PMDG, once we get the Phoenix, once we get the iFly, etc., I think it's going to be outstanding. Now, saying that, there are some issues. I had some issues with the G1000, the speed tape not showing up properly. It just shows 0. The Asobo Max, which everyone was really, really excited about, being a free aircraft within the base sim, has a lot of work to be done. One flight I had, the de-icing did not work. The windshield was just completely iced up. The wings were completely iced up. And it wasn't that awful of a day to be flying either, in terms of weather-wise. I've had issues with the plane just not getting off the ground either. Even though my controls are set, every other plane works fine. I have it set for that. It just doesn't work. It didn't want to get off the ground. I've had issues with some aircraft just not wanting to start. Even though I'm following the standard procedure to get those planes started, they just won't start. Now, those could be related to conflicting keybinds that I have to figure out, or not. And that's some of the issues of having default profiles within the sim itself. So, anyways, thanks for watching this video. Give me a comment down below. Try to keep it pleasant. Try to keep it friendly. Disregard that server stuff. I know that's a big, hot issue. But remember, it's a brand new title, and when you get into it, and you're flying in the career mode or just flying, you're probably going to really enjoy what's there already. So again, take care, and we'll see you for the next video.